here on the Saturday edition of CFRA Live. Thanks so much for joining us. Time to look at the week that was in big local news stories, our weekly rundown news panel. Joining us this morning is Sean Devine. He is the councillor for Knoxdale-Merivale. Good morning, councillor. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Andrew.
And Keenan Wellar is here. He is the co-leader and director of communications with Live Work Play here in Ottawa. Keenan, good morning.
Good morning.
We'll save the hockey talk for a little bit. We'll end on a high note a little bit. But I wanted to talk about, we're in the home stretch of the federal election campaign versus voting day coming up on Monday. We saw this week 7 million Canadians, over 7 million Canadians took part in advance voting. And I did the math, guys, with what was going on, the numbers at the Ottawa area ridings. 250,000 people in the Ottawa area got out for advance voting. So I guess we're heading into the home stretch. Sean, your thoughts on how many people have got out to vote so far, or your takeaways from the campaign? I guess, what have you been watching for over the course of the past 5 to 6 weeks that's felt like a couple of years now?
A couple feels long. Very exciting roller coaster ride it has been over the past few months, though. For a lot of people like us, elections are almost, one form of our sports entertainment. So I've certainly been enjoying watching it, and I am definitely, excited by what looks like the big voter turnout. Of course, that said, it may just mean that most people, not most people, but so many more people did their voting in advance that, we won't have the same correlation of people that vote on E-Day. Yes. Either way, it looks like if we're going to have a massive voter turnout, 70% and above maybe for this election, that's fantastic news for everyone. So I'll just talk about my riding. So I live in the riding of Nepean, which is one of the Ottawa ridings that has a potential prime ministerial candidate in it. And I have seen so many more signs on lawns, which are always an indicator of voter engagement. I've seen so many more signs on lawns than I've seen in any federal election. So that certainly speaks to something. Whether it translates, I won't. I've also seen a certain shift in colors in my riding of lawns that may have been one color in one election are not the same color this time. It's going to be exciting, and I've got much popcorn ready to be popped on Monday.
Yeah, well, that's definitely Monday's going to be a lot of waiting and wishing and hoping, I guess, for all of the candidates, but for all of the political watchers as well. I guess just quickly, Sean, because we have heard, I guess, the two front runners here, the Liberals and the Conservatives here, with Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. We have heard about possible reductions or cuts to the civil service. Now, of course, nobody's being really upfront about these specific numbers and how they're going to do this, but is that something that could have a potential big impact here locally on the Ottawa area? Is how we handle the public service moving forward after Monday, whoever is in power?
I think it absolutely could. And if I was a federal public service worker right now, I think I could understand why they might have some concern over what they're hearing from promises from both parties. It does feel like each of them, they're going about it in a different way, but each, the Liberals and the Conservatives, are talking about what seems like significant reform to the federal public service, probably in different ways that they would go about it. It feels more like the Liberals are talking about a direction that would move more towards AI, whereas the Conservatives, based on what I hear from them, it sounds what could lead towards cuts and or privatization to one degree. And I'll just put my cards on the table. I'm certainly glad to hear both parties talk about being concerned over an over-reliance on consultants. I always, I'm always a little bit amazed about how many layers of consultants get involved before a federal public service worker does something. I would love to bring, a lot of that expertise and skill in-house, but I can sympathize with why federal public service workers are watching this election, perhaps, biting their nails a little bit.
And no doubt, I know we heard from the mayor earlier on in this election campaign, talking about possible support for affected workers that perhaps may be affected here in the National Capital Region. Again, we'll see how this all squares out after Monday, but it's no doubt a topic of concern here in Ottawa. Keenan, just on the federal election campaign, like I said, over 7 million people voting. I've been really hoping that we show democracy how it's done here, 70, 80%. I would love to see that. But what have been your takeaways from either the turnout or the federal election campaign so far? I guess, what have you been watching?
I think the turnout thing is real. It's not just people like me always vote, shifting when they voted, because I've been someone that's just championed voting, period, for a long time. in a nonpartisan way. In this election, I've kind of picked a side, but usually I just champion, go and vote. And I remember, just by way of example, our recent provincial election, I was doing that. People were like, "There's an election?" I'm like, "Yes." Yeah. And so I haven't had that happen at all. Everyone is well aware, and they're coming back at me with, what's their plan for voting? Are they already voted? So it seems to be a real difference. And I think on the public service issue, as someone that's been, supported people with disabilities to try and get employment with the public service, that is something I'm watching carefully, very concerned about, potential changes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. People may think of the federal government as very advanced, or maybe they have just too much DEI, and no, they're trying really hard to hire more people that would come under a DEI label, and they're not there yet with their own targets over many years. So I would not like to see a change in that effort. There's more needed, not less. So that's just a particular concern of mine that I've been watching. And the last thing is taking a deep dive. I'm getting really interested into polling and just kind of digging into the different methodologies. And the women's vote is really interesting. It's really, really heavy to not conservative, which is a bigger shift. It may be a little bit traditional pattern, but it's about 70% of women voting something other than conservative. So it's an interesting dynamic I've been following over the month.
It's interesting. We all have become kind of armchair pollsters watching these numbers and the interesting kind of facts you can pull out of them. But yeah, some of the demographic shifts, some people, when it comes to kind of the recovering Liberal support that we've seen from compared to back in December, there's a lot of fascinating things to kind of pick up on in the polls, no doubt. Again, everybody vote on Monday. If you haven't voted already, make sure you get out there and do your part as well. I want to move on to a couple of other stories this week as well. Provincial politics kind of playing a role here in Ottawa this week. We saw the province launch an investigation into finances at the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. So they've essentially, Sean, run 4 straight years of deficits. I spoke to Pina Buffone last hour, the Director of Education at the OCDSB. He says they're not blindsided by this. It was kind of expected. There's some pressures internally and externally that they have to deal with. We saw other school boards kind of actually taken over by the province with some of their interesting spending investigations as well. Just what did you make of this coming this week from the province, Sean?
I'm of two minds of this. And I know a lot of teachers that are in the OCDSB, and I hear from them frequently that they're concerned about the state. They're concerned about the state of, provincial education in general. They're certainly, I hear them express concern about the school board and how it's run. I frequently hear teachers in the OCDSB just, look at their current student numbers and how their student numbers are dropping because, more and more Ottawa parents are sending their kids to other school boards, perhaps because they're more interested in the stability of the other school boards or what the services of the other school boards offer. So I can understand why the OCDSB is looking at some of the reforms they did. I was pleased to hear from Pino Buffone there had been so much controversy and concern from parents over the recent elementary school program review, where there have been boundary shifts over all kinds of schools. And he was saying that move itself was a reflection of the state of their finances and how they're hoping to take action there. So I don't have the same kind of concerns about our school board that other school boards that are being looked at by the province. Like we've heard about school boards elsewhere, lavish spending sprees on art purchasing in Italy. I don't think that's the kind of thing that the province is looking at here, obviously. But certainly I would be worried. I'm worried about what the province might want to come in and do. But at the same time, when I look at the state of the board's finances, I can't help but understand why the province has those concerns.
And you mentioned, John, kind of the talk about that. And it's good to separate the two because, yeah, there's been some lavish kind of spending that's been done by other school boards that's kind of come under the target. That's not really what's at play here. Mr. Buffone was saying it's more kind of about structural deficits and moving forward here. That being said, though, it looks like both sides are on the same team in terms of trying to find efficiencies. But are you concerned about how that's going to impact, I guess, what students are getting in terms of services, like you mentioned, right? The people might have already fled the OCDSB, not fled, but they might have left the OCDSB for offerings at other boards. If they're starting to make changes and possible cuts here, is there a concern about the service that's being offered at the Ottawa Carleton District School Board for students?
Absolutely, because from what I hear from teachers, they talk about the lack of supports they have, whether it be an educational assistance or not enough teachers per, on a per class basis. So my fear is that the province comes in and they slash at operational levels. From what it sounds like the province wants to come in and investigate how resources are spent, whether they're spent on resources like teachers or whether they're spent in ways that the province thinks is not best value for money for students. So to a certain degree, I'm just going to in a bit of a wait and see mode here. But like I said, I know that teachers are concerned about what they might see from this, and parents are concerned about what they might see from this. At the end of the day, I just want to make sure that, my kids are in the school board as well, that they get proper support from the school board they're in.
And Keenan, to hone in on one particular spot as well, in terms of what the director of education was talking about too, just in terms of, possible effects on students. One of the things that they've been having troubles with in terms of provincial funding has also been helping students with disabilities and those with special needs and the like as well. Is there a concern that they could also kind of face more pressures in that particular area if they're trying to find financial efficiencies, just looking at through that kind of strict fiscal lens as well?
Yes, there really is. And, just listening to the comments and kind of reading between the lines, I guess it's also an opportunity for all school boards, but obviously the ones that are going through this kind of a process, that those of us that provide developmental services to adults who are coming out of the school system, we've also come under some scrutiny from the province because we're basically saying, with what you pay us, we have to run deficits. So perhaps the school board, it's an opportunity as well. If as you say, it's not an issue of inappropriate expenditures and things. It's like, okay, you tell us. This is what we have coming in, this is what we have going out, and these are the services we provide. What is it we're supposed to cut? And so, Ottawa was a hub for a long time for special education. People came from everywhere, and I think they still do to some extent, so they can attend the Ottawa Carleton District School Board because of the special education resources relative to some other boards. And it's definitely a concern. There might be some really important changes to be more inclusive for students with disabilities, but I think this is the big concern is just eliminating or changing services and hoping that the same number of teachers and assistants can somehow deliver the same quality of service, which is not possible. So people are definitely have an eye on that and quite worried because there are lots of issues with that student population being neglected.
And it seems very similar to the pressure like kind of colleges and universities are facing right now with funding freezes in place. So there's a number of different aspects kind of at play in the whole overall conversation. I wanted to ask you guys about a couple of other stories, particularly a couple of stories about downtown and parking as well. But Sean, we heard leaders gathering this week to kind of reimagine Ottawa's downtown core at the Rogers Centre, the former Shaw Centre here. When we're talking about how we reimagine the downtown core, is there kind of one suggestion you've been thinking, like big or small downtown, that could help in any kind of way, shape, or form, whether it's community safety or more of an entertainment look? Is it parking? Is there anything that you look at and say, hey, here's something we can do right now to help out the downtown core?
Yeah, and on that whole issue, like the city building summit that we had last week, and I say that we had. One interesting thing about that city building summit, the summit that gathered leaders to have this conversation, as far as I know, and I've checked with my colleagues on council, city councillors weren't invited to the conversation.
Really?
It wasn't promoted to us. I know that city staff went, like senior city staff went.
Yes.
But I do find it interesting that the decision makers, the municipal decision makers, certainly the downtown Ottawa city councillors, they weren't invited to it. Everyone's open to purchase a ticket, but we weren't exactly, drawn into the event. And on that whole front, like this is like several years worth of gatherings we've had where we discuss, we seek to reimagine the downtown, and I think that's great. But at some point, I want to see, an end to gatherings about how to reimagine it and just to start to act. I know of many, many cities that spend far less time gathering and reporting and producing consultant reports that'll get put on a shelf, stop the imagining and do more acting. And I say this as someone who is very fond of imagining, but you got to act at some point. But to your question, and again, I'm not a downtown councillor, but if I were to put in place any kind of measure that would seek to have, a tangible effect on how to truly revitalize the downtown core, and especially now that we know that the downtown core, and I think we can forecast this, is we're going to see less and less people, at least for the foreseeable future, traveling downtown, to work there, then I think the best thing that we could do is focus all of our initiatives on turning downtown into a place for the people who live there, as opposed to reimagining how to make it better for the people who commute to work there. And by doing that, if you make downtown a better place for the people who actually live there, that will make it a better place for everyone in the city, whether they live there, work there, or want to come visit and play there. And for me, one of the best ways to do that, especially when we look at the fact that housing units are becoming smaller and smaller, is that more and more people who live downtown will enjoy it if they can have places, if downtown is seen as a place for people as opposed to just a place for transportation. And we only have to look to Montreal and how Montreal has revitalized their downtown, whether it's through closing off streets to be pedestrian spaces and how that completely revitalizes an area, whether that's small instant transformations in turning, let's say, this little parking lot or this little small public space into a mini parkette, whether that's something as, innovative as taking one parking space and turning it into a small little remote working space. I think there are just so many ways that we can easily make significant transformations to what the public realm experience of downtown would be, that would make it so much more vibrant for the people who live there, and that would automatically draw the interest and curiosity of people who would want to come visit it. That's how I would go about it.
Well, and Keenan, to that point, Sean also making there that the idea of, we can imagine all we want, but we kind of need to act now in some ways. I guess, do you see things that perhaps could have an impact on the downtown, be it small or big here, that we could get a move on, I suppose, in the near future here?
Yeah, I mean, Sean stole a bit of my thunder there with his live, work, play reference, so that's cool. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what he said, and I just came back from out west and, went to a concert in downtown Vancouver, and I was trying to think, Vancouver's not perfect. They got lots of issues to deal with, but man, it's like such a walkable downtown, and my friend that lives there, here's 13 options for a really nice way to get there. Like, you want to see some nature, you want to see water, all that kind of thing. And so I like a lot of, Sean's comments about, if you make it just an attractive place to be, and we're so focused on cars and, just love to get away from that dialogue that, this is all about luring people from Barhaven to drive their car and park it right outside the store they want to go to downtown. I'm not sure that should drive everything that we do, and just making it more walkable and making it attractive to live there. And also, obviously, it works the same for tourists. They don't want to just drive around, right? They want to park their car somewhere and just be able to get downtown and enjoy everything easily and beautifully. So I think just beautification projects and focusing on our parks and focusing on what's walkable and bikeable and giving people options and making kind of those connections between how you get from A to B and enjoy the downtown without consulting a map to try and find the parking garage where you only have to walk 13 feet. I just don't think that's the realistic answer for now or for the future. And Ottawa is a beautiful city, and I think we just got to build on that. And play to our strengths and stop the whole dialogue about, insisting that there's got to be a way to drive downtown and park 3 feet from the store.
Yeah, all fair points. And now that we've solved all the world's problems, I guess just quickly here, we talk about the Battle of Ontario. Sean, it's great to see Elgin Street back up and rolling here with playoff hockey. Even if you're not, particularly a hockey watcher, it has been great for the city in general just to see Sens playoff hockey back again this week and again tonight.
Yeah, and months ago, so for tonight, and I mean, every once in a while, I don't go to a whole lot of big galas as a counselor, but there's a couple galas that I do go to because they're very important for some organizations in my ward. And months ago, I booked a ticket for one of those, and it's tonight. And so I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at this gala because it's important to support this organization. But my heart's going to be somewhere else, and I'm going to be looking at my phone under the table all the time. It's definitely exciting. I mean, I think we're all worried about tonight. It's uphill battle. I know that every cent is going to be out there giving it their all, but nobody likes to be in this position. That said, it's been certainly exciting to have this kind of excitement and pride and Battle of Ontario rivalry back here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, great for Elgin Street businesses too. Keenan, last word to you. Just how great has it been? It's not the result that Sens fans wanted, but so far, I will say. But how has it been for you to just kind of see the electricity brought back in the air with playoff hockey?
It's great, and it's really exciting hockey too. You want to be in the winning end, but they're pretty exciting games, and it's going to be quite a day because we got the Ottawa Charge game at noon, and they're fighting for the playoffs. And I'm really hoping, I really want our two Ottawa professional hockey teams playing playoff hockey at the same time. That'd be so exciting.
And to have Ottawa beat out Toronto to take that last playoff spot for the PWHL would also be very nice to see. But we'll leave it there just because of time. Sean Devine and Keenan Wellar, thank you so much for your time and talking about the big stories of the week. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sean Devine is the counselor for Knoxdale Maryville. Keenan Wellar is the co-leader and director of communications with Live Work Play. That's their thoughts. Your thoughts, welcome. 1-800-580-CFRA. I'm way late. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll check in on what you need to know.